Imagine waking up one day with a question that won't leave you alone. A question so deep, so urgent, that it pulls you out of the noise and distractions of everyday life. You're searching for something real, something that gives your life meaning beyond the surface. Maybe you don't even know what that something is yet, but you feel it calling you, like a whisper in the quiet moments when no one's watching. This isn't just a story about finding answers. It's a story about a journey, a transformation that changes everything you thought you knew about yourself and the world around you. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear might just change your life forever. It doesn't start with a thunderclap or a blinding light. No, it begins in the quiet moments, in the stillness after a long day, when the noise fades and you're left with yourself. It starts in the soft ache of the heart, the one you've been ignoring for years. You might be sitting in a room full of people, laughing, talking, performing the role life handed you, but deep inside, there's a whisper that says, "Is this really it?" It's not a loud question. It's subtle. It creeps in between smiles and scrolls, between paychecks and parties. It asks again and again, "What's the point of all this?" And at some point, you stop running from it. You stop silencing it with distractions. That's when the real journey begins. You start to notice things you never paid attention to before. The way the sky looks at dusk. The way your heart reacts when you see someone pray. The way a kind word feels more healing than hours of entertainment. It's like your soul is trying to reach out to something bigger, something higher. And even if you don't know where to look yet, you can feel the need burning inside you. It's a hunger for truth, for meaning, for purpose. And you realize that success, fame, validation, they've all been too small to fill that hole inside. This moment is sacred. It's raw. It's uncomfortable, but it's real. Because you're not just living anymore, you're searching. You're asking questions that no one around you seems to want to ask. You're beginning to see that maybe life isn't about building a name, but finding your soul. And that kind of search strips everything away. You start looking through books, through conversations, through history, through scripture, not out of obligation, but desperation, because you need something that makes sense, something that doesn't shift with trends or disappear in tragedy. And somewhere along that journey, something changes. A verse catches your eye, a prayer moves your spirit, a story about a prophet makes you cry, and you don't even know why. You realize you're not just searching anymore. You're being guided. That quiet longing wasn't weakness. It was the beginning of guidance. The Creator heard you before you even knew how to speak. And every tear, every moment of doubt, every lonely night was part of the path leading you to truth. You didn't know it back then, but in the silence, God was already calling your name. When you begin searching for truth, you often expect it to come through people. You think someone will show up with the answers, that a conversation or a friend will point the way. But what happens when people disappoint you? What happens when those who claim to know the truth come off with arrogance? Or when those born into the religion you're curious about seem more interested in debating than guiding? For many who discover Islam, the most powerful introduction doesn't come from a person. It comes directly from the source. From the words that were revealed more than 1,400 years ago, still untouched, still alive, the Quran. You could be sitting alone, unsure, confused, wrestling with doubts, and then you hear it, maybe just a verse, maybe a few lines that don't sound like anything you've heard before. And somehow, without fanfare or pressure, those words feel like they were meant for you. They speak to your pain, your questions, your hope. It's not about language or culture. It's about something deeper, something timeless. The Quran doesn't argue with you. It doesn't shout. It speaks. And in its speaking, it reaches a place inside you that no conversation ever touched. You feel like it's not just explaining life, it's revealing it. This kind of discovery is powerful because it bypasses all the barriers. It doesn't matter what you were raised believing or whether you ever stepped foot inside a mosque. It doesn't matter if the Muslims you met were unkind or the media painted a dark picture. When you connect with the words of God directly, the noise starts to fade. The confusion starts to clear. Because you're not being convinced, you're being awakened. And that awakening doesn't come from a well-crafted argument. It comes from something spiritual, something sacred. You recognize the truth not just with your mind, but with your soul. And this realization carries weight. It humbles you because you see that truth isn't dependent on those who carry it. It stands on its own. Islam doesn't need to be sold to you. It only needs to be seen. And for many, that moment when the Quran reaches them is the first time they feel truly seen by something greater. Not judged, not pushed, just seen. You realize that while people may fall short, the message never does. While followers may forget the beauty of what they carry, the words themselves still shine. You found Islam not through a person's example, but through a divine invitation. And that invitation felt like it had been waiting for you all along. One of the hardest truths to accept on this journey is that the beauty of Islam and the behavior of some Muslims don't always align. You come searching for peace, for depth, for connection with the divine, and instead, sometimes you find judgment. You ask questions with sincerity, hoping for clarity, but instead you're met with coldness, or worse, condescension, and it hurts. Because you're not trying to challenge anyone, you're just trying to find the light. But instead of open arms, you sometimes find closed hearts. And in that moment, confusion creeps in. How can a religion that speaks so much about mercy, patience, and compassion be represented by people who forget those very values? You start to realize that there's a painful divide between the message and its messengers. You begin to see that while the teachings of Islam are perfect, preserved, profound, and powerful, the people who carry it are still human. They struggle, they fall short, and sometimes they push others away without even realizing it. You understand that many were born into this faith, taught rituals before meanings, rules before love. Some never felt the sweetness of the words they repeat daily. So when someone new, someone like you, approaches with a heart full of questions, they don't always know how to receive you. They don't always know how to nurture a seeker. But that doesn't mean the faith is flawed. That's where the test lies. That's where the decision must be made. Do you walk away because of the people? Or do you keep going because of the truth you felt before they even spoke? Because long before any negative encounter, there was something pure that pulled you in. A verse. A moment of clarity, a sense of peace that came when you bowed your head, even if you didn't yet know how to pray. That feeling wasn't fake. That moment wasn't dependent on anyone else. It was between you and God. And that's the lesson hidden inside the pain. Islam is not to be judged by Muslims. Islam's to be discovered through its source. The beauty, the justice, the balance, it's all there. But sometimes you have to look past the noise, past the behavior, and return to the words. That's where the truth lives. And that's where your journey must stay anchored. because the actions of people can be a door, yes, but they can also be a wall. And if your heart is sincere, then no wall can keep you from the truth that was written for your soul. When you've searched through darkness, confusion, and emptiness to find something real, you never forget the moment that light entered your life. For someone who wasn't born into Islam, but found it through a journey of pain, questions, and quiet desperation, the faith doesn't feel like a routine. It feels like a lifeline. Every verse feels personal. Every prayer feels like a reunion with something lost. Every lesson from the prophet feels like it was sent just for your healing. But then when you come into the Muslim community, you notice something surprising. Many of those born into this treasure don't seem to see it the way you do. They pray, but with their minds elsewhere. They fast, but complain the whole way through. They recite the Quran, but rush past its meanings. And you wonder, how could someone have been raised in this faith and yet feel so distant from it? It's not judgment you feel, it's sadness. Because you would give anything to have been raised with the words of God echoing through your childhood. You would give anything to have known about the Prophet's mercy from the beginning, to have had the guidance of prayer as a young soul still learning right from wrong. But instead, you found it later, after the scars had formed, after the heart had been broken a few too many times. And now, having finally tasted the sweetness of this faith, you can't understand how someone could take it for granted. But you come to realize that when something is handed to you without the struggle, its value often becomes invisible. Like a treasure buried in your own backyard, you can be standing right on top of it and never know what's beneath your feet. That's the painful truth. Many Muslims must face. They were born into something extraordinary, something people around the world are searching for, crying for, even dying to understand. But because it's always been there, its beauty has become ordinary. This realization doesn't just humble you, it awakens you. It makes you want to live your Islam with intention, with fire, with gratitude. It makes you want to be the kind of believer who doesn't just practice Islam, but embodies it. And it makes you hope that maybe your passion as someone who found the faith can help reignite the hearts of those who were born into it. Because Islam isn't just a religion, it's a revolution of the soul. And sometimes it takes an outsider to remind the insiders of the gift they've been holding their whole lives without ever truly unwrapping it. In a world so desperate for direction, the role of Muslims must rise beyond rituals and into responsibility. People are searching not just for religion, but for truth that breathes, for guidance that feels like hope and not fear, for a way of life that lifts the soul instead of shackling it. And while Islam carries all of that and more, the way it is presented often determines whether a person moves closer or further away from it. The truth is, Muslims are not just followers of a religion, they are walking invitations to it. Every word, every act of kindness, every moment of patience in the face of hardship is a reflection, a mirror that either shines the light of Islam or clouds it over with shadow. People don't read books before they read hearts. They don't open the Quran until they've felt that someone lived by it. In that sense, every Muslim is an ambassador. Not just the scholars, not just the preachers, but every person who says La ilaha illallah. The challenge is that many Muslims live with the truth but don't carry the urgency to share it. They assume people already know, or that someone else will explain it better. But what if that one interaction, that one kind response, that one honest conversation is the seed that could change someone's eternity. What if your silence becomes the reason someone walks away instead of toward? The painful truth is this: the message of Islam is not lacking. The Prophet delivered it with unmatched clarity, and Allah preserved it with divine protection. But the followers have a duty not just to live Islam, but to represent it. And representation means more than posting verses and quotes. It means being that neighbor who checks in, that colleague who speaks with integrity, that stranger who smiles for no reason but to spread peace. It means embodying the same mercy the Prophet showed even to his enemies, the same humility that kept him awake at night, praying for people who rejected him. In today's world where Islam is often misunderstood, feared, or misrepresented, the behavior of Muslims carries more weight than ever. People are watching, they are listening. Some are on the edge of belief, waiting for one sign that the faith they're curious about is not just beautiful in theory, but in action. And when they see that beauty lived, not just preached, they don't just respect Islam, they are drawn to it because the heart recognizes truth, but it often finds it in the way it's delivered. And Muslims must remember that they are not just protectors of Islam, they are its living, breathing proof. There's a moment that comes after the search, after the struggle, after the questions have turned into clarity. It's the moment you realize that this journey isn't just about finding Islam. It's about becoming someone new. You didn't just gain a faith. You found a path that demands transformation. And while the discovery feels beautiful, it also feels heavy, because now you carry something sacred. You've been shown a truth that millions never see, and with that comes a responsibility that cannot be ignored. It's not just about praying and fasting. It's about living as a reflection of the message. It's about becoming someone whose very presence whispers the name of God without ever needing to say it aloud. This is where many new Muslims or those returning to their faith with open eyes face their deepest test. It's one thing to accept Islam, it's another to embody it, because now you know, now you've felt it. The verses have touched your soul, the prayers have softened your heart, and the emptiness that once haunted you has been replaced by something eternal. But this transformation isn't always easy. You're still living in the same world. You still face the same temptations, the same pressures, the same habits that once defined you. And yet, you're not the same person anymore. You can't unlearn what you now understand. You can't go back to being blind once you've seen the light. And so you wrestle, not just with the world around you, but with the world within you. You want to be better. You want to rise. You want to live in a way that honors the gift you've been given. But it's not always perfect. You fall, you forget, you stumble, and sometimes you feel like you're failing the very faith that saved you. But that's where mercy comes in. That's where the beauty of Islam stands unmatched, because this journey was never about perfection. It was about sincerity. It was about effort. It was about turning back again and again, no matter how many times you fall. You start to understand that the real transformation isn't in how much you know, but in how much you grow. It's in how you treat people, how you talk when no one is listening, how you forgive, how you strive, and most of all, how you remember. Because now you walk with purpose, you speak with meaning, you serve with humility, and you love not just people, but the one who brought you from darkness into light. That's the kind of transformation that doesn't fade with time. That's the kind of change that touches generations. You didn't just find Islam, you found who you were always meant to be. As we come to the close of this journey together, remember that searching for meaning is not a sign of weakness, but the beginning of true strength. You took the courageous step to seek, to question, and to open your heart. And in that search, you discovered a faith that calls you to rise above pain, beyond judgment, and into a life filled with purpose, mercy, and transformation. Islam is not just a destination. It is a path that challenges you to grow, to embody compassion, and to become a living testament to its timeless message. May this journey continue to inspire you to live with intention and hope, to seek understanding even when it is difficult, and to remember that every step you take toward truth is a step toward your best self. Hold on to the light you found, nurture it, and let it guide you through all the challenges ahead. Thank you for listening, for opening your mind and heart today. I wish you all the best on your own journey of discovery and growth. Good luck. And may peace and blessings follow you wherever you go.